everyone, it is Asha Dawson, your event planning strategist from Event Productions by Jen, and I'm here to make your day more meaningful and more manageable. Let's get into today's topic. Today I want to talk about wedding weekend etiquette. This is something that often comes up at final walkthroughs with clients, but I wanted to discuss a little bit about what you should be considering, not wedded to, but considering for your weekend with all of these family and friends who may not ordinarily come together, but are there for your big day. So we're going to start with the rehearsal on that night before the wedding, and then we'll get into the ceremony and then the reception. Let's start with the rehearsal. People are oftentimes wondering, who should I invite to a rehearsal dinner? How big or how small should that be? Let me preface by saying that, of course, it's your money, therefore it is your decision. Let's start there. So typically in the traditional fashion, we find that the groom's family is going to pay for the rehearsal dinner. That is what has been done in the past, because traditionally a lot of the time the bride's family has paid for a ton of the wedding. Now this is something that a lot of couples deviate from. It really doesn't matter, in particular if you are in a queer relationship as well, these patterns get interrupted. But that is the tradition. So let's talk a little bit about the etiquette with the rehearsal. So first off, the core people who need to be at that rehearsal and who you would invite to the dinner afterwards if you choose to have one would be everyone who is a part of that ceremony. Okay, so think about the officiant, all of the wedding party, so that's groomsmen and bridesmaids. You're thinking the immediate family of both sides. And that is who gets invited, okay? So for most people, that shakes out to roughly 30 to 50 people. Now, of course, there are folks who want to invite plus ones. I find that for a rehearsal dinner, inviting plus ones makes it a bit more enjoyable, particularly if you have out-of-town guests. A lot of the people who are going to be at that dinner are going to want their spouse or their partner to be able to participate in the dinner function, but by no means do they need to be at the rehearsal itself, okay? So what I have seen in terms of what is fair and what comes across as proper is the core people for the ceremony go to the rehearsal, everybody meets up at the dinner afterwards. Oftentimes there will be assigned seating at the rehearsal dinner. If you feel like there are touchy dynamics, if you feel like there are not touchy dynamics, it's perfectly acceptable to go without any assigned seating. And when we say assigned seating, I really mean like placards, right? Like those small name cards or table assignments. But that would be a more formal rehearsal dinner. A lot of couples today are just going after a space at a restaurant that they can have. It's not even always a private space. A lot of couples are opting for semi-private spaces or alternative venues. I have clients in the past who chose to go with a rooftop venue so that it felt like a Friday night out event, right? So think about what the vibe is of the people who are attending that party and then choose a venue that is appropriate for that, right? Etiquette means that you are doing the things, the mannerisms, the tastes, right, that fit that group's customs. Okay, that's really what it means to have etiquette. Now on Saturday, you're going to be thinking about the ceremony. So the ceremony, when you are thinking about the seating, we almost always have 2 rows of reserved seating, okay? You have a smaller family, 1 row. But I guarantee you to not have reserved seating for elders, for parents, for those who may have a disability, okay? That is going to be frowned upon. You definitely want to make room for those people with reserved signs, and whoever your greeters are, that could be your friendly wedding planning team who may be your greeters, or someone in your family that you've assigned to do that task on the ceremony day, making sure that those people know ahead of time that they have reserved seating and that they are guided or escorted to their seats when they arrive at the ceremony. Next, what you want to consider is if the wedding party will stand or if they will sit. If you have a ceremony that is longer than 30 minutes, it is advisable to have an opportunity for the bridesmaids to have a seat. You want to keep in mind that your bridesmaids are almost always going to be wearing some sort of heel. And it is a tremendous amount of pressure to stand up there, smile, right? Photos are being taken, what have you, for longer than a 30-minute ceremony. So what I would advise is making sure there is seating ahead of time. Of course, this is covered at your rehearsal, but making sure there is seating ahead of time designated for the wedding party to have a seat. The bridesmaids sit, the groomsmen also sit, okay? If you are in a more traditional ceremony, say you are in a church space, it's even encouraged to have a seating arrangement for the bride and the groom, okay? Oftentimes churches will provide that because those services tend to go closer to an hour or even just over an hour. So that covers the ceremony. When we think about the actual processions for the ceremony, not just the seating, you want to remember that there is the traditional form, and then there's how today is really set up. So let me start by saying what the traditional form is. The officiant and the groom are going to be the first ones at the altar, okay? So at the beginning, you will see oftentimes the officiant leads the party, okay? They are the first person in. The groom will follow right after that, oftentimes walking alone down the aisle. He will stand at the altar until everyone processes in. Usually we have the groom's immediate family that follows. So if the groom's parents are willing to walk down the aisle together, then they would come in together, have a seat, right? And then you would have bridesmaids, groomsmen, all the whole party, right? The whole procession. And then you would get to the mother of the bride, right? Who is escorted in by someone. And then you would have the father of the bride and the groom. Sorry, the father of the bride and the bride. However, let me tell you about some combinations I've seen with some of my clients that I think are really successful and quite lovely. The most common combination I had this one girl, she was like, what do you think about having both my parents walking down the aisle? That seems to be more fitting with how I grew up and what I really want in the aesthetic for the wedding. I say do it. That is one of the most common things to do, okay? So I encouraged her to definitely make sure you have enough room in your aisle, right? This is something to consider when you're choosing your venue. But have both your parents walking down the aisle. It fits beautifully with the ceremony. A way that you can join the two mothers is to, even at the end of the aisle, you can have a unity candle where the mother of the groom has already lit one, mom of the bride has lit one, right? So there's this moment of unity. That's one thing you can add to make this even more special, to bring women to the forefront of this ceremony, which we are seeing trending right now, is not just having the patriarchal format of procession. Another thing that you could consider is having your dad or the father of the bride, right, walk down the aisle separately. I've seen moms walk down with their daughters before as well. I just want to say that these are different things that people are doing, even though the traditional format is the father of the bride walking down with the bride. Something to consider as well is when we have step parents involved. That's one of the biggest questions that we get, is what do I do about the fact that I have a stepfather and a father? Both of these men are important to me in my life, right? And what I say is, girl, find a way to make it work that feels authentic to you. A couple of combinations that I have seen both fathers walk the bride down the aisle. If you are from a family network that is flexible in that way. What I've also seen work is that one of those two fathers has a speaking role during the ceremony. And the other father has the symbolic role of walking the bride down the aisle. But all of these things fit into what would be an appropriate etiquette. Something that would be inappropriate when we were considering step parents and parents, once again, depending on your family dynamic, is entirely excluding someone. I really think that's the only place you can go wrong. Unfortunately, when we have seen parent figures, step parent figures, just entirely excluded, it often breeds bad blood and bad energy for the ceremony. It also raises questions with guests. You'll see the whispers, right? You'll ask oh, isn't that such a, right? What we don't want is that energy in the space. So what I encourage you to do to maintain that etiquette, the propriety of that space, and nobody distracted from the real reason we're all there, which is for the couple, is to find something small and symbolic for every one of those immediate family members to do, okay? When we're thinking about parents, this is very important. So that is ceremony. Reception, lastly. The biggest piece for etiquette that we want to consider for the reception are the dances. I have had so many brides say to me, I don't know that I want to do a father-daughter dance. I want to do a father-parents dance, or I don't want to do the dance at all. But the problem is that my husband wants to do a dance with his mom. So I don't really know what to do because I don't want things to look off balance. Here's the good news. The good news is that you don't have to do every dance to look like you are doing what needs to be done, right? To look like you're compliant with wedding traditions. You don't need to do every dance. If you don't do a first dance, I think that is the only time when I've watched a crowd go, what kind of wedding is this, right? If you don't do something with a parent, that is okay. In 2025, what I have seen is that even when one of the members of the couple has chosen to do a dance with a parent figure and the other one does not want to, or maybe doesn't have the ability to, they have substituted an aunt, a sibling, okay? Someone from the wedding party, someone who is very close to that person or that couple, who's gonna be there for the long run of the marriage, is a perfectly normal substitute to have. And I encourage you to choose someone to fill in instead of notably excluding the dance. One of the reasons is because if one side of the couple is doing a dance and is adamant on doing that and the other one doesn't have that chance, there is a deficit in the balance, right? It seems unfair. And that's what you don't want, right? That seems unfair. That gets people talking. Why not just have a dance for you and someone else in your life who is special? So that way everyone can get to have something, okay? So just want to recap what we covered today in this video. We started with talking about the rehearsal, okay? Then we got into the ceremony, and then we got into the reception. The biggest takeaway I can leave you with is to do what feels right for your group. Etiquette is relative. It is not this one thing, this one standard that we in the industry or we in a religious group, what have you, have said you need to do. The best form of etiquette is whatever fits this group best. Okay, whatever fits this group best. So you and the groom need to be in conversation with each other. These are great questions to ask your wedding planner as well. And don't be afraid to tell the wedding planner exactly what you want in a lineup or in a procession, right? They are there to help you. So if you are feeling like you want support with how to set all of this up, you're feeling overwhelmed with, am I getting this right? Am I gonna hurt someone's feelings? Reach out to our team. Here at EPG, we are so happy to support you with this area. Before you go, imagine planning your ATL wedding with a step-by-step co-pilot. That's my DIY Atlanta wedding checklist. Venue shortlist, permit must-knows, 90-day and day of timelines, all in one place. It's free, it's yours, and it turns today's tips into your action plan. Hit the link in the description or the pin, download it now, and you'll be miles ahead by tonight.